So I want to go over the idea that business is a game, and specifically, it is a math game. Okay. Thing about business is that it's not always fun. The thing about games is that their whole point is to be fun. So this idea came to me because I've been thinking about business as a series of inputs and outputs and ROI and all these different things. And it kind of got convoluted and crazy. And I just wanted to make it super simple and almost like a game, right? Like if you played any video game or just game like checkers or chess, it's very simple, it's very contained, and you know that there's only like a certain amount of moves you can make to win. And so I wanted to make that as simple as possible for myself to think about on a daily basis. And now I've kind of created a little bit of a system for myself that I want to share. So, resources are what a lot of games take and require from you as a character or a player to get something done, right? In our case, one big resource is energy. Energy is obviously what you wake up with, and your ability to think and dive into something and brainstorm and anything like that that you do requires energy. We also have the idea of skills, which can be broken down to the kind of component parts of things that you do. It can be things like editing a video, like this one here, as I'm about to have to do, speaking, which I'm currently doing, and you can use in sales and public communications or anything like that. And we have things like, graphics and a couple other stuff that you can think of, anything and everything that comes with a skill of your craft or also the skills of business, like let's just say sales. Those are all one big resource. The thing about skills particularly is that these are percentage multipliers, okay? Percentage, I'm gonna write it out here, multipliers, okay? And the key formula for these two things is that if you take skills and multiply it by energy, you get a lot more leverage, right? If you have less skills or less energy, then you have way less leverage. But if you have more and more, and if you just have more of one particular skills, because that's one thing that you can really get a lot more of, whereas energy is kind of non-renewable. It is renewable, but it's got a limit to it, right? You can only have a certain amount of hours per day, a certain amount of energy per those hours. Skills is the one that's the big leverage to get you that nice high return. Okay, so now we have those resources, and I want to talk a little bit about like the functions and how you use them, how you apply them. Okay, so a big thing with all this is to understand what you're making and what you're delivering to people. So on one hand, you have products. On the other hand, you have services. Generally speaking, these are the two big main categories of things that you can sell. And underneath them, you also have kind of these subcategories. You have one-time products and you have recurring revenue products. Okay? Recurring revenue can be either monthly, annual, or even weekly in some cases. And then for services, you have the same thing. You have one-time services, and then, you have recurring revenue services. Okay, so an example of each, a one-time product is just like a meal, right? A piece of food. You get it, you pay for it, you have it, it's done. Recurring revenue product would be something like perhaps meal delivery, because you have meals, obviously plural, that come your way. And this is forgetting the service part, the meal delivery service part. Let's just assume we're talking about the specific meal. You're getting a meal, a product, every week, month, or year. But that'd be kind of weird. One-time services is something like, mowing somebody's lawn for a couple of bucks as a kid or something like that. And a recurring revenue service is something like SaaS, right? Any software is software as a service. And you have, dollar amounts per week, month, or year that you pay to continue to use that service. Okay? So now with these in mind, if we go back to our idea of skills and energy and the resources that you put into it, there's two processes. There's a process of building one of these products or services and selling one of these products or services. Okay? You have to build something and then you have to sell that something. Okay? And with building, it's pretty straightforward. You have skills with energy, and these convert into products or services. Okay? And your biggest leverage for most people is going to be skills. Okay? If you don't know how to code, you learn how to code, you can make tons of products, tons of services. If you don't know how to do anything creative, you can learn how to edit a video, and you have a service. If you don't know how to do something or whatever, you learn how to do the skills, apply that with your energy that you apply into the learning of the skills as well. So, furthermore, what you could do is that energy converts into skills, and then you combine the two or multiply the two, and then you have products and services. Okay? And on the selling side, we need to introduce a couple more concepts, okay? Because selling something that we have requires this other component, which is either content or marketing. And content, as you know, is pieces of media. So photos or videos or text that describes something that you're doing or something that you've built, right? So this can be like a specific image of a mountain and a thing. This could be specific text, or this can be some kind of video content. You make it for free, you post it on a channel, and then with enough of that, you have the ability to sell something. Marketing is just content plus money. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, you have the same creative piece of video, text, or photo, and then you apply some money to it. So overall, to get something that you've built to be sold, what you need is a product or a service, and then you need to add in either marketing or content, and then you get money. Okay? And if these are one time, then you get one-time money. But if they are recurring revenue, then you get money per month, let's say, and then you get money per month. So very straightforward, right? But now I want to talk about the truth beneath all this, because this is all fine and dandy. This makes perfect sense. If you've been following along, I hope this makes perfect sense. But the real question is in the doing of things, the generation of the skills, the generation of the content, all the things that actually take time and focus and effort to do these consistent actions every single day or week or month or whatever. How do you do them? Okay. And that brings us to the idea of automation. And automation is something that I think is rather new in some ways, but also very fundamental in other ways. Okay. Automation, in my eyes, can be accomplished in one of three ways. You can accomplish it yourself. And you're thinking, okay, if you're doing it yourself, it's not automated. But if you think about a habit that you do every day, like you wake up and you drink a cup of water, you make a cup of coffee, it's basically automatic, right? And so in some ways, you're automating your habits or automating yourself or automating your calendar to do something. That's self-automation. Another way is to use code. You can automate a Python script or use Zapier or Make or N8N. You can automate it with code by setting it up once, and then it does it all the time. And then you have automation through others, which is called labor, right? And this one is very clear to people, right? You automate a set of tasks or a task to an individual, and then basically day in and day out, it gets done. Automation, I think, is the key to getting everything done, right? If you have that product and you have the content, this content is heavily dependent on someone automating it, okay? So to expand this formula a little bit, if you do automation here, we're just going to spell it out to make it super clear. This is going to go way higher, okay? Obviously, you have a product. Once it's done, it's done. Obviously, content helps people find the product, but the automation of it is what makes the content easier, more efficient, and what leads to ultimately money. Self obviously costs the most energy. It's highly energy dependent because it's you, and you have opportunity cost of doing something here versus something there. That's essentially what opportunity cost is. I can, work on my guitar skills, but I can't work on my drum skills. The opportunity cost is drum skills. Code still requires some amount of energy, but it's not as much. Let's just say it's like a 15th of the energy, because in the beginning, it does require energy so that you can set up the script and the kind of steps of what that code needs to do. And then you probably have to refine it a few times and go back and forth with it and make sure that it's good. And then every once in a while, you're going to have to check it and update it and all that stuff. But it still requires energy. But once it's done, then ideally, you're not doing that much stuff with it. Using others also requires energy. And ideally, you can train someone up, but maybe you have to oversee what they do every single day. You have to check on things, right? You have to make sure that they've learned properly what that you've asked them to do. You have to make sure that you're watching them to make sure that they have good quality, right? Not in some weird, like, overly managerial, kind of nitpicky sort of way, but at least in the very minimal way of you got to train them, you got to onboard them, you got to quality control them, and every once in a while they're going to have questions and stuff like that. So, as you can see, ideally, you do want to be able to have better and better forms of automation. And these two might actually be interchangeable depending on who you are. If you understand code, these numbers might be a little bit different because code is super easy for you and humans are not. And potentially the other way as well, right? If you are very good at managing people, but you're not good at code, then you could lean on this one. So that is like the overall picture of how to go from basics of resources like skills, energy, and money to a place where you're creating consistent money and income from these inputs and outputs. And I just wanted to make this super simple for myself because once you see it like this, I think it's a little hard to overcomplicate. And you just have to focus on deciding which piece of content you're going to make or which piece of marketing you're going to make and then how you're going to automate it. Really, like I said, fundamentally, the big thing is going to be automation. And then once you figure out the strategy for these other things, like there's not much more that you need to do but to do it. And that doing it is either going to be on yourself or coding it up or getting others to do it. This has helped me look at things just a lot more simply. Whenever I get overwhelmed, I'll think back to these basic formulas and say, it really is that freaking simple.